What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What's going on, everybody? America, how are we today? It is your boy Rod. It's my boy Don. We're in the building. Welcome to another episode of Brooklyn Beards and Ball Sports Show. We are so excited. So much to talk about, of course, in the NFL world. Just a plethora of things we got to cover. Tomorrow, we're going to cover the whole confusion with the playoff scenarios and just everything we got to talk about. And of course, we're going to talk some culture stuff as well, and we're about to get it in. But before we do that, we need you to do us a favor, please. Listen, we are enjoying all of the feedback and the love that we're getting, so we want you to continue with that. Like this video, subscribe, make sure that you hit that little notification button that says all, so every time content pops up on this page, you are the first to be notified, all right? Facebook, YouTube, we need your support. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us. We're excited to bring you such great content. And I'm here with my boy D. D, how you feel, bro?
Feeling great, man. How's everything with you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm here. I'm excited. I'm just getting ready for some playoff football, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. We got some playoff games coming, happening later on today.
Yep.
Man, after all the confusion and, after several hours of reading over what the NFL put out.
Several hours, right?
It's crazy. It's crazy how they came up with that. But, let's get into it, man.
Let's go.
Week 18 is already here.
Yep.
But we want to start the show off with some fantastic news. Given our last episode, we solely talked about Damar Hamlin.
Correct.
And his medical emergency and issue going into cardiac arrest. Well, we have an update. I'm sure everyone has heard by now, but Damar is no longer using a breathing tube. He is communicating with his family. Yep. He actually did a Zoom with his team, and he's communicating, writing, and I think he's also actually able to speak.
Yes, he is.
He was able to, I think one of the first things he asked the doctors through a written message was, did we win? Right. And the doctor responded, yes, you won the game of life. So, Damar had an actual Zoom with his teammates where, I'm sure that was a relief for his teammates to see that he was faring well. And it seems like he has gotten through the toughest part of his journey. And I think that it's safe to say that he should be, being released from the hospital, shortly. I think at some point that's imminent that he'll be released from the hospital. And, I'm sure he still has a recovery to do, but thank God he's alive. Once again, all of the prayers, all of everyone's, just focus and goodwill towards Damar Hamlin. Obviously, it shows the power of prayer. It shows that, people can not be so, self-centered and really focus on somebody else. Correct. And I think clearly sometimes tragedy, that's what it allows us to do. We stop focusing on ourselves and focus on someone else. And I think to updating what his foundation or his toy drive, I think it's over $7.5 million or $8 million.
Wow.
And that was initially the request was only for $2,500. So he has gotten a ridiculous amount of actual contributors who has given donations. So that is great news. I'm glad that it turned out the way it did. What do you say?
Yeah, I agree with you, D. I mean, thoughts and prayers have been with this young man. Obviously, not only in the NFL community, but across the world, in fact. And we saw statements from his family, how appreciative they were of everybody supporting Damar in this tough situation that he was in. And so, again, to God be the glory. We're just giving God the glory. There's a passage of scripture in the book of James, talks about how the effective, intense prayers, how they avail much, or how they prevail and how they overcome, calamity and challenges that we see in our lives. And I think, Damar Hamlin, I think this situation, and again, we're so grateful for the fact that he's been able to come out of this, right? What looked like a life and death situation. Of course, life obviously prevailed. And when you look at what has happened to him, it's amazing how it has really changed everything that we see now, puts things in perspective. And we often say that a lot, Don. We hear that when we see guys get hurt, injury, a guy is out for the season, or maybe he gets sick or something that has to now make him consider his career. And we say, man, it puts things in perspective. It's more about life and different things of that nature. But then we kind of move on and we kind of go back into the normal, routinized way of living as we normally do. But I think this time was different. And I think this was something that resonated and gave more of an indelible impression in the hearts and minds of people of how we look at sports, how we look at life, how we look at people. And even to see, shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals, the entire community there and how they came in support. This was a rival at the beginning of the game, right? There was, probably some competitive bad blood, if you will, but then to see how they rallied with the Buffalo Bills and how supportive they were as an organization to McDermott and to the Bills organization, and to obviously Damar Hamlin, the people there in Cincinnati. It's just amazing. It just goes to show that humanity again wins when we just come together in love, and we put that at the forefront before anything else. And so again, thank God for Damar's family and everyone that's involved. And we're just so elated and excited to hear about this tremendous progress that he's made.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the NFL.
Yep.
Well, the NFL has decided, based off of that game, what the NFL decided to do was to cancel the game.
Correct.
And obviously it made sense to do it. And the
Correct.
NFL had rules in place for such a situation, not obviously, a medical emergency that would cancel the game. But
right.
If for whatever reason teams could not complete games for whatever reason,
right.
How that would play out as far as the playoff picture.
Right.
But although they had rules in place, they decided to go rogue and come up with a whole different breakdown of how they would determine home field advantage for the AFC.
Correct.
Which is crazy. They came up with this whole set of rules. And as you can see, there is countless scenarios. And so let's put this into perspective. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are, in position to be the number one seed, right? Based on winning, right? I think they have the best record in the AFC.
Right.
But because the Bills and Cincinnati's game was canceled, the NFL should have gone off of winning percentage. But yet they came up with this whole breakdown of scenarios that gives really no one home field advantage. Right. All of the teams, depending on obviously if those teams are involved, it would go to a neutral site, right?
Right.
So if the Bills and Kansas City play, even if Kansas City has a better team record and would normally get home field advantage throughout, now they have to go to a neutral site.
Right.
Same thing is, and what is weird also is Cincinnati, they're playing Baltimore, and Cincinnati has a better record than Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But if they face each other in the playoffs, it's a coin flip as to who gets home field advantage.
That's correct.
So I look at it as the only team that is really impacted greatly. All of them are impacted, right?
Right.
Because it's weird. The team that's impacted the greatest is Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. They're missing out on not only having home field advantage, being able to host a playoff game. Now it's up to a coin flip, as opposed to just going off winning percentage. And yes, they played one less game than Baltimore, but they have a better record going into week 18. So based off of winning percentage, and we know Cincinnati was extremely hot. I think they won 6 of their last 7 games. So they were on a winning streak within their division and within the AFC.
Right.
So they're impacted greatly. And I think that my question to you and to the audience is, did the NFL get this right? Because I really don't think they got it right. I think that they made a knee-jerk reaction based off the fact that there was a traumatic situation, and give it time, right? Because no team really, the Buffalo Bills obviously weren't in a mental state to actually play the game. The game was postponed. People argue that it took them too long to make that determination that the game was not going to go on and canceled. So now that they've canceled the game, why rush into something or create something that disadvantages other teams? So this is the proverbial making a mountain out of a molehill. I think that they have actually made the situation worse. Those two teams, that game being canceled could have been, I think resolved by just going on winning percentage. And then if the teams, just like anything else, and playoff pitchers, once they kind of drill it down to, whether you won your division or not, and then if it's a tie, then there's other things that are in place to determine the tiebreaker. But I think they went outside the box and not in a good way. What do you say?
Well, I mean, it's a tough situation because number one, all right, let's just back up a little bit. We talk about the cancellation of the game, right? Again, in a lot of NFL, obviously took a lot of heat in the way in which they did it. It took too long. And I think sometimes people I think they kind of exaggerate a little bit in terms of their feelings towards that, because you got to understand there's so many layers to what has to happen to cancel a game, right? In real time. It's not like, there's a projection of a snowstorm coming like the the Buffalo game there where they had to move them to Detroit to play because of the snowstorm and the inclement weather conditions that were coming, right? You have time to prepare for that. So that's one thing, right? That's different what we saw the other night, the situation with Damar Hamlin, life or death, guys receiving CPR. The NFL was in total flux, right? Nobody really knew what to do. So, I mean, to their credit, right? You got a lot of layers you got to go through. You got to talk to the players. You got to get an idea what's happening on the field. So you're going through all of these things, right? To finally you come to the conclusion once it's been determined, like, okay, the most humane thing to do is to cancel this game. Okay, so they did that, and then they had to make a decision a couple days later to say, well, do we replay this particular game, right? So a postponement is different than a cancellation. So the game technically wasn't canceled until a couple of days later after the fact, once they kind of got a little bit more news on Damar's development with his health. And again, talking to the teams, probably consulting with, psychologists and different people to get an idea how the players would feel to play a game again. Because, right, when you replay that game, you're going to have to play from that particular down, right? You're going from that place, which means now you're going to have the emotional impact, the trauma that came with that end of that last play. And now you have to somehow bridge that over into a fresh game, but yet still with the memories of what was played on that Monday night, right? So maybe players didn't want to get involved with that. They didn't want to kind of immerse themselves into that again. There's a lot of emotional detachment that would need to take place for them to do that. And so, okay, so you got that. Now coming into how do we do the scheduling now as far as the seeding and, two teams that's going to have two less games that they're going to play. And I agree with you. I think the percentage thing is important. They probably could have done it that way. There was probably a less complicated way to do that there. But I do think I kind of feel like it probably was a situation where you had Buffalo and Cincinnati, and I think they kind of bought into this. I think they're probably at a situation, and this is just my opinion on this.
Well,
I think they kind of feel like, hey, you know what? We don't even care. We'll play wherever we got to play. Damar is good. If we got to go on a road, we got to play. Something's got to be dealt or determined through a coin toss. So be it. Like, we don't care, right? You look at Cincinnati last year. This is a team that won games on the road and got into the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. The least likely team to do that, right? And they're probably better, and they are better now than they were last year due to the experiences that they have, right? And so I think when you look at this might have been something that wasn't just all on the NFL per se, although there was votes that had to take place with the owners and different things like that. But I kind of think that what the NFL really wanted to do was to kind of show some kind of of support for the players still through the process. They couldn't look like it was still all about what they are notorious for, and they have a reputation that precedes them in this way, that it was all about the money, all about this, that, and the third, and we're just going to go back and play the game and let them somehow get this one game in. But that's why I do agree with your point, though, D. I do think the percentage of wins would have made probably more sense, as opposed to all these different scenarios. If Josh Allen wakes up, if he yawns 3 times, if the temperature is 40 degrees or more, then this team can get that. I mean, it's completely complicated. I can't even. I mean, we have a sports show, right? I have an obligation to kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit when it comes to these scenarios. And I'll be honest with you, America, I'm sorry, I failed. I'm dereliction of duty here. Okay, completely abdicated my responsibility as a sports show talk host to be able to give you some insight on the scenario of the playoffs, and I can't do that because I don't understand it. So
I don't think they know, honestly. I don't think they know, and I don't think
Right.
that there is a justifiable reason for why they went outside of the rules that were already established. Now, I get it that I will say this. You mentioned that I think that the teams were okay with it. I think that the teams were okay with postponing the game and not continuing the game that day.
Right.
But Zach Taylor, the coach of Cincinnati Bengals, actually spoke out about it and was like, why aren't we going with the rules? I get it that, whatever situation took place, obviously it was a traumatic situation. And even if you want to cancel the game, there are rules in place to if a game is canceled or it is. Keep in mind that Cincinnati was winning in that game 7-3. And that's just that's just a side. That's not important, but at the end of the day, Zach Taylor is actually speaking out against it because they have rules in place. So why it wouldn't take the NFL to create this whole.
Well, what would that rule entail? What is the rule
winning percentage? It would be based off winning percentage.
Okay.
So it's not based off of a scenario and then a neutral site. Because now my question to you is, all this neutral site and regardless of the schedule, does that benefit? Do you think that in any way, although that you're saying that the NFL doesn't want to be insensitive to the situation, but we now know that, thank God DeMar Hamlin is doing much better, and I don't think he's no longer in critical condition. Right. So my question is, do you think that they went too far in trying to overcompensate for the fairness? Now, is it that, and this is the conspiracy theory side of me coming out, but do you think that they have tried to cushion Buffalo's chances of getting deeper into the playoffs, i.e. AFC Championship game? Because if Arrowhead is a difficult place to play, it's a difficult place to play. So now if you're taking away home field advantage, now mind you, these 3 of these teams that they're talking about that are being impacted are all outdoor teams, right? So that's not it's not like you're taking a dome team and now forcing them to go out. Right. But my point is, home field does count for something. Yeah, and sure you can't tell me that, let's just say if a team was playing in Buffalo, the inclement weather, the snow, the crowd, all of that, wouldn't be a part of the whole thing. So now putting them in a neutral site, is that a benefit, or do you think that the NFL is going too far to try to level the playing field or take any advantage? Because what is that to say about the Chiefs, who have played their whole season, because there's only one team that gets a bye? And how about this? Mm-hmm. Why not push it back a week, right? Because push it back a week. Yeah, yes, it gives every team a bye. Everybody would have a bye, right? Exactly. And so it's not ideal because but if you're taking away the fact of a team having the best record and getting home field advantage, why not take it away so that it's even with everyone getting a bye, right? Because the special treatment that the team with the best record gets, they no longer get it in the AFC. Now it would affect the NFC because they would have to yin yang and balance it. So let's just say the Eagles or the Cowboys or even the Niners, because they're all in, contention to get that first round bye. They would
Correct.
get 2 weeks bye, right? Because
Right.
they would already get the bye and then the additional week based on the AFC trying to catch up with us. So why not just do that? I mean, rather than create this whole scenario that puts and displaces and asks and a coin flip and all, it just seems a little more, out of the ordinary. And it seems like, are you trying to manipulate to get a certain outcome? Or is this because you already have rules in place? That's all I'm saying.
Right. No, I agree. I think they could have followed that, and I was definitely a proponent of just pushing everything back a week, right? Which would have given everybody that bye week, so everybody would have benefited from it, right? Nobody would have complained about that because hey, listen, everybody gets healthy, every team benefits from that, and you bring in the equilibrium or the equanimity of everybody getting the same level of treatment and preparation, right? So I agree with you there. I think that might have been even better than the percentage point, in my opinion. But again, when you look at the neutral site, though, I still don't think it's as bad because, right, the Super Bowl is played at a neutral site. Now, again, getting to the Super Bowl, you would rely on some of that home cooking that you can get along the way to get to the big dance, right? But at the end of the day, you're going to have, a neutral site to try to win the Super Bowl in anyway, right? Even if you were a wild card team and the team that you play from the other conference was a number 1 seeded team, they don't still get the benefit of playing at their home stadium just because they were number 1 seed in their conference and they're in the Super Bowl. So you still have the impact of having to win on a road, but you're just winning on a road now in a neutral site that's not benefiting either team to that degree. So, I mean, I agree. I still just think the NFL may have overthunk this a little bit, if I could put it that way. Like you said, maybe they kind of overdid it a little bit, but I think that's the issue with the NFL. There's no right and wrong with them. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if they're ever going to get things right, because if they do something one way, there's going to be criticism. They go this way, there's going to be criticism. People are going to criticize what are they going to do. And I think for them, what was most important, considering everything that happened, they wanted to, at least at the end of the day, show some sensitivity to the situation. And I think, ultimately, you could have played the game again, but I think the teams didn't want to do that. Thus, the situation we had. But you do have a system in place which could have gone by percentage points or just given everybody a week off. So it was a lot less complicated ways to handle it. But
I think if Zach Taylor had the option of replaying the game, he would go with that, because then that would keep it the fairest possible.
Oh yeah, I agree. And
maybe
Buffalo would have done it, but then maybe they wouldn't, right? Maybe Buffalo didn't want to do that.
But what if you face these teams in the AFC? Like, I get it that everybody is on an emotional roller coaster, right? But when does that, now that he is, on the other side of a traumatic issue and he has come through, thank God.
Right.
Okay, we got to get back to it, right? Because if these two teams play each other in the AFC Championship, is it not now they're not going to be able to play the game because of what happened?
Remember, you've had more games by that time. Like, in other words, what breaks that traumatic, emotional, overwhelming feeling that you get from that game, right? And when you play another game. Now, playing a game that's detached from that game, like what they're going to play when Buffalo plays New England on Sunday, and Cincinnati's going to play their game. And what's going to happen is it's a different game, different players. So you're going to be able to get past that because of the fact that you've got another game under your belt. You've got you're back into your rhythm again, but you don't have to bridge it from the last game that you played that actually when you experience the traumatic effect that what happens in DeMar Hamlin. So by the time you get to the playoffs, obviously this stuff is going to be out of their mind. These guys will go back to hitting and tackling and doing the things that they get paid to do. But I don't know. And now, again, I'm only speculating. I didn't see any reports from anybody. I didn't get any word from out of the Buffalo media or based on what their organization felt like from the players to their brass to say maybe we didn't feel comfortable playing. I'm just assuming that might have been because I still think Cincinnati and Buffalo had some say in what we ultimately see right now to some degree. But then as you said with Zach, he was like, look, we had a system in place. Why didn't we kind of go with that? You know what I mean? And I think maybe because probably Buffalo didn't feel like, hey, I don't want to play another game. So it's a lot to think about. Maybe some more will come out later, but yeah, that's just what I feel. But I agree with you though, D.
Yeah, but how do you allow, if that's the case, how do you allow one team's feelings, especially with all of the information we now have on Damar Hamlin's condition? How do you now let one team affect the outcome of 4 other teams? If you're saying if that is indeed the facts,
right, if
that
is the case,
that Buffalo is saying, well, we don't really feel, we still gotta get over the situation, and we gotta, because they put Damar Hamlin on IR, right? So that means, a minimum of 4 weeks. Chances are his NFL career may or may not be over, but certainly we don't think he's playing anymore this season, whether they're in the Super Bowl or not, right?
Absolutely not, right.
He might just be more of a, ceremonial player. If he's up to it, if they get that far, maybe he comes to the stadium, maybe he comes to the game. But I do think it affects, I'll say this, I do think that it affects, there is a difference even if it's a neutral site, because if you played well enough to have home field advantage, now you have to travel, right? We understand that these players are creatures of habit, right? So there is a certain comfort. I just was in Vegas, right? And I stayed at a beautiful resort. I stayed at the Venetian, right? I mean, it's gorgeous. All suites, huge, marble, everything, right? But there is a difference with my bed and the Venetian, right? So I think that there is a difference in a comfort level of either being at home,
right,
where you have, the comforts of home, you can sleep in your bed. And if you have played well enough to enjoy that, there is a difference. We can't understate how big of an impact it is to now you're going on the road, and everyone knows home field advantage, especially if you have home field advantage throughout, you're getting 2 games at home. That makes a difference. So going to the Super Bowl, that's not a big issue to play at a neutral site for the Super Bowl, because that's the big dance. So nobody minds that. But to say it doesn't impact, and it's just, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. Actually, it is, because since the NFL changed it, it used to be 2 teams per conference that got the bye. They reduced it to 1. To now take that away and circumvent the rule that's in place so that no one has an advantage I don't think it's fair to the other teams. If it's based on Buffalo's feeling or comfort level in playing,
well, but again,
especially with the knowledge.
He did it, just to your point, right? Because again, who was gonna? You're talking Cincinnati, right? They may.
We're talking Kansas City, because Kansas City right now has the best record.
They have the best record, right? But they all would have been at some point, right? Let's just say Cincinnati beat Buffalo on Monday night. If that game was to have actually played, they would then be 12-4. Buffalo would be 12-4. Kansas City wins today against the Raiders. Now they're 14-3. They're still going to end up as a number. Kansas City most likely would still end up with the number 1 seed. I think that came into the thinking process too, right? Maybe to a degree, based on who's playing and the level of competition and the probability of a team winning. I think at the end of the day, I think they tried to find a scenario that would at least try to, again, give some equilibrium across the board. And I get your point about that number 1 team having the benefits of being home. I don't disagree with that at all. I totally agree with you there.
Do you guys want it? Do you guys want it, or you don't care if the Eagles get it?
What, the number 1 seed?
Yeah, number 1 seed. That's what we've been talking about for the last 20. So it is important. So don't act like, oh man, we don't want it. We don't care.
I mean, but based on, if you're asking me that in the context of the NFC, that has no impact at all.
Well, I'm just saying in general. We know that there was a medical emergency that affected this whole, snafu and change of, but let's not minimize the importance of the number 1 seed throughout. especially a team that always loses in the first game, right? As the Cowboys do. So it at least buy you some time and you'd be able to see, the second round, right?
I mean, everybody wants the first. Everybody wants that number one seed, right? I mean, we do, but I mean, to your point, what initiated all this, right? Obviously, DeMar Hamlin, his injury. So now you have to still keep that somewhere in the vortex of your mind when you're putting this together, right? And meaning the NFL, everybody, right? How do we be able to still go forward if we're not going to play the game again, right? Could have went percentage points, as you said, they didn't do. Could have gone back another week. They could have done that. So the best thing that they're saying is that, okay, if Cincinnati and Baltimore has to end up in the playoffs, that's a coin flip. If you got the number one seed has to now still play on a road on a coin flip or something like that, which I don't think is the case, right? I mean, in Kansas City,
it's neutral. Kansas City does not get. That's my point. Kansas City, right, regardless if they have a better record, still has to go to a neutral site. That makes no sense. It disadvantages all these teams because the NFL made a knee-jerk reaction. I get it. Wait to find out. And I understand emotionally teams may not have been ready to move on until they knew that, hey, things are looking up. He's in a better place. And I don't mean it that way, but I mean, he's actually improving in his health. He's gone through the toughest part of it. And they have that information. So why rush to create this whole, ridiculous scenario-based layout of because at the end of the day, Kansas City, very much like the NFC, has nothing to do with those two teams. But yet they're impacted because instead of Kansas City, instead of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce sleeping in their bed every week through the playoffs until the Super Bowl, if they make it there, now they have to go to Detroit or it's some dome, to play at a neutral site. So you can't tell me that they don't lose the benefit of Arrowhead.
But see again, but you still having to factor in assumptions, right? Who's to assume that Kansas City, it depends. Now, if you look right here, right? Kansas City is 13-3. Say they lose today, they were 13-4, right? And so Buffalo would then be because Buffalo
was the number 2 seed, right? So let's say Buffalo.
They beat Kansas City this year. They lost.
They did.
They beat Kansas City.
They beat Kansas City.
So that's the one. So right. So
and Cincinnati beat Kansas City.
That's correct. So if Buffalo won last week, let's keep Cincinnati out of it for a minute. The number 1 and number 2 seeds. If Buffalo won last week, let's just say they beat Cincinnati. Okay. They're 13-3, right? Okay. They would have been 13-3. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kansas City, let's just say, loses today. Now they're 13-4. Buffalo beats New England, right? Again, all of these are probable scenarios.
Okay, that's fine.
So they end up.
They're both with the same record.
And they both with the same record. Buffalo wins the tiebreaker because they beat Kansas City.
Right, but
so that's what I'm saying. So we can't. So Buffalo would still get hurt.
What's the chances that they're going to beat the? What is the chances that the Raiders?
That's why they did what they did now. Now it's starting to make sense because
no, it doesn't make sense.
Because you can't say who was going to end up ultimately and unequivocally the number 1 seed.
You're going off the assumption that Buffalo was going to beat Cincinnati. What if Cincinnati beat Buffalo?
So now they're 12-4. Okay,
right,
and now they become the number, and then they may end up getting the tiebreaker over Kansas City. Should Kansas City lose today, right? Then now they become the number 1 seed in that sense, right?
Okay,
because they would beat Buffalo, and they would have now, and they already got a head-to-head competition win over Kansas City. So again, what I think was happening is we don't know who would have been the number 1 seed. That's why the number 1 seed's got to be in a neutral site. It's not Kansas City that's the only one taking the hit. It would have been Buffalo that would have been they would have gotten the short end of that stick, or Cincinnati or Kansas City. Either one of those teams would have gotten a short end of the stick, depending on how the last 2 games would have played out.
That's why they should have replayed the game. That's why they should have replayed the game once they found out what was going on.
That's why it goes back to my point why I feel like Buffalo didn't want to do that, because I think that's
because they're benefiting from it. Of course they don't want to do it. They're getting the benefit of the doubt of the what ifs. What if? And what if Josh Allen would have? And
you know
what
what?
if?
And you might be right.
They're benefiting.
Right. No,
so
you're
my
right.
question is,
You're right.
are they benefiting? And is the NFL NFL assisting them in trying to make the AFC
Well, I don't think they're
Championship game.
assisting them. I don't think they're assisting them. I just think by default, Buffalo sees the benefit of it by default. Because again, Kansas City could still not get the home field like they would have gotten as a number one seed. Neither would have Cincinnati, and neither would Buffalo. Buffalo ends up with the number one seed. Guess what? They now still lose out at the end. So this still could work against them for not playing the game over. So they could still end up on the short end of the stick.
So the only way this works and makes sense, right,
Mm-hmm.
is the NFL is going to have to do some home cooking, right? And this is how, because people are baffled by why they came up with this whole scenario.
I agree. I didn't think it makes
Kansas City is going to lose to the Raiders today. That's what's going to happen. They play today. They're going to lose to the Raiders, right?
Uh-huh.
And it makes zero sense that they should lose to the Raiders. They're going to lose to the Raiders.
Right.
I think they're a 9.5. Are they 9.5 or 14? I think they might be 14.
Right.
But
right.
Are they 14?
Something ridiculous.
Okay, they're at least 9.5 point favorites. The only way Roger Goodell doesn't have, look stupid, and the NFL doesn't look like they are trying to, orchestrate an AFC championship game, because if I'm understanding that correctly, every NFL team or every team is spraying a number 3 on their field. I know Buffalo for a fact is wearing number 3 patches, but am I
think other
correct?
teams are too.
But every team is are wearing
number 3 patches. From what I had heard, right? I don't know if it's mandatory or not, but I did hear
optional or something.
It's optional. They're going to put the patch on.
Well, I mean, once one team does it, it'll seem like, oh, whoa, you don't care about them, and it's not
exactly.
So most likely every team is going to put the 3. So yeah, I see the writing on the wall. I see the writing on the wall.
Conspiracy.
Hey, listen, remember this. If the Raiders win, then they can say, well, see, we didn't know if the Bills could have won and still been the number 1 seed. So it's the most convenient and safe way to go.
I agree with you. If we happen to see an upset today in Vegas, I would become a conspiracy theorist now officially.
Okay, well, you heard it. You heard it there. You heard it
here.
He said he's going to.
A conspiracy theorist.
You hear that, Nutso? He said he would. He said. Oh man, but listen.
It's gonna make me a conspiracy theorist now. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Because there is a cause and effect to all of this stuff, right? And they have to make it seem like they were justified. Because remember, they had rules in place. They're going outside the box. And the NFL really doesn't color outside the lines unless they're forced to or they're incentivized. This situation was such a polarizing event, right? Where it united people outside of the NFL sports. Everybody was talking about that. Was on regular news. It was on ESPN, Fox Sports 1, you name it. Everybody was talking about the incident and with Damar Hamlin. So the NFL, as much as they care about or arguably care about their players, because they have no guaranteed, that's why guaranteed contracts is so important.
Right.
Baseball players, fully guaranteed. Basketball, fully guaranteed. NFL players who, from a percentage, they suffer more debilitating injuries per game, per play than any other sport, but not fully guaranteed. So we're not really sure about how much they really value, but they do understand that there is a opportunity to maximize, especially now that they know that he's doing better, to maximize that. And what would be the best, feel-good story than the team, after having such adversity, to, they had to play at a neutral site and they crawled their way back. They could have packed it in, but what did they do? They made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. They fought, and this would be the perfect time. Insert him to come in to the stadium. Everybody goes crazy. He's doing well. and now they're in the Super Bowl. And we know the Bills, they're past going to the Super Bowl, unsuccessfully 4 years in a row. So this would be NFL is good at creating storylines. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that obviously the incident was anything like that. It was tragic, unfortunate. But now that he's doing better, the NFL is like, okay, he's doing better. So now we don't seem insensitive about, kind of milking that storyline. But you know what? We're going to continue with that because as long as the Bills are involved,
I agree.
Garmin,
I'm not. Yeah, that's not
the Hamlin story grows. He
Yeah.
is actually driving the Bills into the AFC Championship game and perhaps beyond. So I think that the NFL has hitched their wagon to that.
Yep.
The tragedy, and they're turning tragedy into triumph. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, and any business is going to certainly take advantage of a situation like this. Unfortunately, they'll monetize it some way. So yeah, I agree.
So my question to you is, what is the story? Let's real quick talk about the NFC pitcher. The Cowboys need to win out. Dak Prescott is saying all the right things about, we just need to win and we're not looking at the scoreboard and we're not doing. Now, he needs to tell Mike McCarthy not to look at the scoreboard because that's all Mike McCarthy does. He's always looking up at the scoreboard. The whole game is going on. His life is flashing before his eyes, and all he can do is fold his arms and look at the scoreboard. So Dak needs to tell his boy that first. But this is, I don't think, Jalen Hurts is going to play. So Gardner Minshew, I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play because, Sirianni would be foolish to risk. Now, if you don't think your team is good enough to win anywhere, right? Then you have to lay it all on the line. But what if he re-aggravates that shoulder injury for a first round bye? Yeah, I know that rest and that extra week sounds good, but you got to get there, right? And they're playing.
Take that 1 week now. To your point.
Right.
Instead of it on a
exactly. And I know this is music to your ears. I know you want to hear that. But if they lose, obviously if they lose, you win the division, but you don't get the first round bye. You know who gets if the Eagles.
Well, yeah, because y'all, I understand. Because
if the Eagles lose, who gets the first round bye. So don't get your hopes up.
Because y'all are playing Jackson State. I get it. That's what messes the whole thing of the NFC anyway. It's almost not even worth talking about. Why? Because the 49ers.
The last game is a division game. So that is everybody's division. And percentage-wise, your division, you have 3 teams that's in that division that's actually making the playoffs. Am I right?
Yeah, 3 teams.
Okay, we only have 1 team that's making it. So you have a better division, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're playing. The NFL has orchestrated it once again, because the NFL's job is to keep fan bases as engaged for as long as possible. That's why they restructured it so the last game of every season moving forward is a divisional game, because they know they're going to kick the can and make sure that those games count and mean something. So people are glued to the TV, every game, even to the last, because once your team is mathematically eliminated, i.e., I won't put any teams on blast, but there are teams that are mathematically eliminated, right? Once those teams are eliminated, the fan base, they're not there. They don't have the same kind of, vigor to watch the game. Yeah, but if it's week, the last week we got to watch this and then, so you should beat the Commanders, right? That's who you're playing, right? You're playing the Commanders. You should beat them because they're did they go to
another quarterback? Yeah,
exactly. And Ron Rivera didn't even know. Well, we can be eliminated. He didn't even know. Ron Rivera, you're fired. You're fired, Ron Rivera.
You got to give a little. It's hard to root against Ron, but somebody should have told him that though too, right?
Listen, that is his job to know. Ron Rivera.
It is ultimately.
Don't go to the press conference unless you know.
He probably shouldn't have said that though.
He shouldn't have said. He should have just said. Just shook his head. But what, we can be eliminated? What? Eh?
Are we in the NFL?
Football? Yeah,
Right.
exactly. CTE exam right
Right,
after that.
exactly, right.
Yeah, because you should know that. So Ron Rivera, I think,
Oh
will be
God.
looking for a new job.
Yeah, I
I
think they're
think
gonna
that
end up
there's
letting
going
him
to
go.
be
Yeah.
some coaching. There's going to be a lot of open positions.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say, you guys, I think, should be able to win. The
Yeah.
Cowboys should be able to beat the Commanders,
Yeah.
right? You have
Yeah.
no respect for the
Look at the-
Commanders, right?
No, I respect their defense. I think they're
Oh,
still gonna
now I
fight.
respect
I've
their
always
defense.
said that. Even when y'all played them, I told you they was.
No, but that was because you thought Purdy Cat wouldn't perform. It wasn't because you
It took them a
respected
little while
them.
to get there, but y'all struggled in that first half against that defense, which I imagine they're gonna.
Did we win or lose? I don't remember.
I mean, y'all won the game. Y'all should
Okay.
have won the game. I mean, y'all won, but y'all struggled. See, that's the. Let me say
won.
this real quick.
We
Let
won.
me say this, America. I want y'all to hear this real quick.
We won.
This is the problem I have with my co-host right here. Okay, because when the Cowboys struggle against lesser opponents, it's y'all shouldn't have been struggling like that. There's a lot to be said when you play down to the competition and you don't dominate the way. But then when the 49ers do that, okay, then it's but we won. It doesn't matter. Like we still won. You know
That's
what I mean?
not the case. That's not true.
That's always the case.
That's not true.
It's always a double standard. When Dallas don't play well, or we lose to a team we shouldn't lose to.
The Texans,
all
when you
America
play
falls
when
out.
you play a team that has one win and it takes you a 90-yard drive to win that game, that is not the same as
But that same team gave the Eagles problems. That same team beat didn't they beat who did they beat? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank right now. The Texans have played very well the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. They played very competitively.
They gained momentum after playing you guys. After they said, "Hey, you know what?
That's what I'm saying.
They're all talk. That star don't mean too much."
Here we go. Oh Lord, here we go. You see,
But listen,
it's a double standard, America. But go ahead, Don.
there's no double standard. It's not a
here.
double standard.
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, we both have winnable games this week, right?
Yeah, we do. Oh, sure. Y'all listen. We have a winnable game. Y'all have a game. If there's any game that should have been deleted from the schedule,
let me tell you why not.
The NFL didn't get right. I tell you what the NFL did. If they was to replay the game, they should know what they should. It didn't get nothing to do with the other conferences. That's what makes it so bad. That 49 Arizona game, that game should not.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be easy.
Played.
Let me tell you why.
It's not going to be easy. Why is it not going to be easy?
I'm going to tell you one simple reason. It's not going to be easy.
Why?
They're not going to let J.J. Watt go out like a sucker. I'm telling you. They're going to make J.J. Watt look good. He may not. They may not win.
Conspiracy stuff.
No. Watch.
What do you think they're gonna do? So they're gonna win? They're gonna have?
No. I didn't say they were gonna win. I didn't say that they were gonna win. I didn't say that they were gonna win.
Okay.
But our offensive line is actually really good, right? And I think that J.J. Watt, they're gonna make sure J.J. Watt has a decent game.
How?
Actually, not decent, but good. They're gonna make sure he has a good game.
He must get a lot of tackles for loss because all y'all do is run the ball. So unless he's stopping the run, it ain't gonna be anything. Y'all a run team first, heavy run team first. So I mean, Purdy throws when he has to throw, pretty much, and he's been looking good, by the way. I'm not angry at Purdy, but I don't think that game is meaningless. He's
been compared to Patrick Mahomes.
Know what? Huh?
He's been compared to Patrick Mahomes, by the way.
You know what?
Brock Purdy. He has been.
This show now.
And you know who did that? You know who compared him? You know who compared him to
Patrick Mahomes? Compared him to Patrick Mahomes?
No.
Who?
Steve Young. Steve Young said, watching him. Now, do we respect Steve Young, or do you think he's just a
Hall of Fame quarterback? I respect
okay. So he said, and this is what he said. Obviously, there's no there is no true comparison to arm strength and all of that stuff because Patrick Mahomes is one of one, right? But he said, watching him play in situations, he looks at his demeanor. He says that his heartbeat should be elevated. And it seems like he is very poised. He says that he seems like he's very poised and in control of the offense. Very similar to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, so America could hear what both Don and Steve Young just said, which y'all may have even heard. You said his heartbeat. You said his comportment, the way he carries himself. What in a crisis?
Yeah, his poise. I mean, that. Listen,
So,
I haven't seen Brock Purdy do this. There's no Brock Purdy doing this after he throws an interception. But I have seen a player that's been in the league for 7 years do that.
Yeah.
I've seen almost every week.
But Dak is
going to the sideline.
Right, but Dak is way more accomplished than Brock Purdy. Okay, and Dak has a very good winning percentage in the league. He does complete over close to 70% of his passes career-wise. Okay, and has a tremendous winning record as a starting quarterback. He's been to 3 playoff games. Okay,
how many wins does he have in those?
He's 1-3. He's 1-3. But let me tell you something. Those games are not his fault, except the last drive of the 49er game. That's the only game he didn't play well in. He played well against Green Bay, he played well against Seattle, who we beat, and he played well against the Rams. He's played well. Dak has not been the reason why we lost our playoff games, except the game against the 49ers, which I think the whole team got punked in that game. If you just want to be, fair about it. You know what I'm saying? But Brock Purdy compared to Patrick Mahomes. Come on, Steve.
Steve. Listen.
Really, Steve?
I didn't make the comparison.
You know what? He might
the
have
Hall of Fame quarterback. The Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame quarterback.
He just lost some of his Hall of Fame points right there, because there's no way after 3-4 games you're going to compare Brock Purdy to Patrick Mahomes.
He's comparing rookie to rookie. He's not talking about
the rookie Patrick Mahomes.
Rookie Mahomes, not current Mahomes. Rookie Mahomes being, thrusted into the starting role, and because let's face it, he was the last pick of the draft, right? We have to give him a little more credit than just looking good and a flash in the pan, right? We have to look at it as number 262. Losing the first string quarterback, the second string quarterback who was the incumbent that is beloved and has a high winning percentage, and comes in to a offense that is a high powered offense.
Right. Okay. Yes. Make that very clear. Don't breeze past that point.
I'm not. He has weapons, but you still got to be able to accurately get the ball to your weapons.
Yeah, but I mean, all you have to do is be an efficient enough NFL quarterback to do what Brock is doing right now. When you have a Kyle Shanahan, you have a Debo, an Ayuk, a Juszczyk, a Kittles, a CMC. You got these guys, and you got a good offensive line, a good scheme. All you got to do is be good enough at an NFL level to make the throws. That's it. Listen, I'm not taking away from Brock, but we can't all of a sudden say man, this guy. No, he is playing good football right now due to a system that's making him look very profitable. Okay, and all he has to do is hand the ball off. That's it, and fake like he's throwing over the top. Meanwhile, CMC done ran 20 yards up the middle. It's nothing hard. It's nothing hard for him. He hasn't been faced with anything because he's already within a very great. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Let's just be honest. Mahomes is a very, very, very good quarterback, very talented, very gifted. I think he would have success no matter where he went, but it does benefit when you have Eric Bieniemy and an Andy Reid, okay? And you had Hill and you got a Kelsey who's always open the way he is. You got a good running game like they've had in recent years. So look, I mean, come on, let's not get Brock Purdy is playing good.
So maybe that's where the comparison is coming in, because you can have weapons, right? Look at Zach Wilson. He had weapons, right? The Jets team was good. He had good weapons.
Not like the Niners, though.
I'm not saying like the Niners, but they had
receiver.
They had good. They had good defense, right? They had Garrett Wilson. Yeah, they had Breece Hall that got injured.
Breece Hall, yeah, that's it.
They had Elijah Moore.
Okay, Elijah Moore is good.
Who else did they have?
Players. Are they good at the 49ers, though? Is that a better offense than the 49ers?
No. It's not. But what I'm saying is just because a player goes into a good situation doesn't mean that equals success. That we have to give some credit, and I'm not over blowing Purdy's impact, but Brock Purdy has done something that other great quarterbacks, especially Niners quarterbacks, have not done. He is one of only 2 quarterbacks with a thrown at least 2 touchdowns per game and over 100 passer rating. That's 100 passer rating. What does that mean? That means he's throwing the ball. That's what it means.
Yeah, well, he's throwing. Yeah, no, he is throwing the ball. He's throwing the ball. And again, the 49ers outside of the first half of the Washington game, and then of course your defense did not look good against Vegas, right? He's not really been in a position where he can throw at luxury, right? Some of the games that y'all played, he was just able to throw because he's able to throw, right? Because again, no pressure. It's just that's the play that Kyle Shanahan can call because y'all are dominant and y'all are winning the game. So if you want to just throw some passes and just kind of let him get loose a little bit, you can do that because again, you've got the game under control. But what happens when you get into a situation where y'all are playing a really good offense and your defense is, because I'm going to be honest with you, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, you ain't going to like what I'm about to say. I still kind of think y'all's defense is overrated. I don't think y'all have played very mediocre offenses. When you play a good offense that's really good with weapons, with good play calling, your defense is suspect. It's only good because y'all haven't played any really good offenses all year. So, and you saw that, and y'all could Stidham balled out against y'all. You know what I'm saying? That's a backup quarterback, right?
Let me explain something to you.
And that's gonna put Brock Purdy in a position where the games are high scoring, where you know what, he's gonna have to throw the ball a little bit more. And we saw some of the throws that he made that was a mistake, but that's okay. I'm not taking away that Purdy is not playing well.
We're not talking about somebody that has their quarterback has 14 interceptions, right?
But we have the number one offense since he's been back. But we're averaging over 30-some points a game, and Dak is 8-2 since he's returned. So you can all the interceptions you want. It still doesn't. Those interceptions are not hurting us. He was 8-2 since he's been
perfect.
back.
I'm glad. We're going to edit that. We're going to keep that. We're going to keep that clip. The turnovers are not hurting us.
They're not hurting Dallas like that. No, they're not. No, Dak's interceptions are not all on him. Okay, as we saw,
we don't care about on him or not. Interceptions and turnovers do not hurt the Cowboys.
No, it doesn't hurt Dak. We're talking about Dak in terms of his play and us still winning.
Dak's gonna still get his $40 million. Are we talking about that? What are we talking about?
We're talking about the interceptions as if we're losing games because of it. We're not. We're not losing games.
Who did you guys play? You have played. If you had played higher caliber teams and turned the ball over.
We played Philadelphia, which is the number 2 defense in the league, and number 1 against the pass.
Yeah, but you won the turnover battle. Remember, if it's a wash with turnovers, that's how you can balance it out. They had 4 turnovers, you had 3. That's how you won the game. But let me explain something to you. Guess what? Next week, you guys will be playing Tampa Bay. And guess what? You guys are going home. Turn the ball over, and I promise you will go home. I promise. Brady is going to have a field day. If you give him extra opportunities, and listen, the playoffs are better with Tom Brady.
Yeah, it is. It is. We don't got to talk about Tom Brady tonight. Okay, let's move on.
I noticed that your shoulders sunk into behind your screen. That's your back screen is the catch. Is that the? Oh, okay.
That is actually the 1992 NFC Championship game that we beat the 49ers in Candlestick Park, and we were definitely underdogs that year, okay? And we beat. The catch you probably talking about is the slant that Alvin Harper caught, and that's that catch. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. No problem. Okay, well, listen. Let's talk about something that obviously got a lot of issues, a lot of comments, a lot of people, we discussed it. Skip and Shannon, their whole exchange. Right. And so my question is, people have commented based off of Skip and Shannon's, little beef or altercation at the, discussing DeMar Hamlin and what Skip tweeted, whether it was taken out of context, whether it was insensitive. But since then, there has been, people saying on Twitter, telling Shannon, who's actually responding to these Twitter, posts, hey, if Skip disrespects you one more time, we're going to storm Fox Studios, they stormed the Capitol. Matt Barnes was talking about, the fact that, Skip is very disrespectful and that he's had to personally tell several people not to beat up Skip Bayless and,
Mm-hmm.
all of this. So my question
Mm-hmm.
is ESPN and FS1 and all of these other like news or sports news shows, are they kind of perpetuating violence, as it pertains to the Black community? Are they, exploiting sports media? We know Amazon, who was also involved in the Kyrie post, right? Because that was the platform that Kyrie posted about, the alleged anti-Semitic movie, right? But yet you
Mm-hmm.
have 2 Chains after every Thursday night game, as your spokesperson that is kind of transitioning because there's a music or a performer, whether it's a rapper or R&B singer, performs after every Thursday night game. So you can't have it both ways, right? So
Right.
it seems like they are, we know that Skip Bayless is always talking about how, close him and Lil Wayne are, and
Right.
that's his boy, and he's
Yeah.
always referencing, oh, Lil Wayne text me and this, because we know Lil Wayne is a huge Packers fan, and so they go back and forth with that. And
Mm-hmm.
so my question to you and to the audience is, at what point do we, because we both agree that Shannon should really do his own thing. He should really, kind of sever ties with Skip. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
no hard feelings, appreciate it. But I'm gonna go on and do my own show and do my
Mm-hmm.
own thing.
Right.
Because I think it gets to a point where, I think about Dave Chappelle, a lot when Dave Chappelle was talking about, when he was doing the Chappelle show,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have different skits and the different writers, and he was writing, and he would obviously show it, to the team, before they put the show out. And it gets to a point where they were laughing, but it wasn't the type of laugh because it was funny, where it got to a point where Dave Chappelle had to come to the crossroads. Am I putting out something that is funny, or am I at a disservice, or I'm creating a disservice to the culture? And are they laughing with me or laughing at me?
Right.
And so I'm thinking that ESPN and Fox Sports 1, by allowing some of this stuff or giving people platforms to kind of perpetuate what they think, because they for a large degree, they want us, sports figures to, they've already said, shut up and dribble.
Right.
And we appreciate you for your entertainment value, but we don't want to hear what platform. We don't really care about you empowering your people. We don't really care about what you can, provide as it pertains to any type of direction. We want you just to, pretty much do what we want you to do, right? We want to, from the kind of the, now I'll say this: our sports figures, our musicians, our rappers are not role models, right? Let's be clear about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. Modeling your life after 2 Chainz or Lil Wayne or, any of those individuals, Drake, whoever, any sports figure. But
Right.
they also understand how media works, right? They understand that you can hear something, and as have you ever been in an elevator, or you kind of heard something and it was background music, and then you find yourself humming it? You don't know where it came from, but that's how media and music and everything works. So they understand the power of music, the power of, you can hear a song and think, oh man, I remember exactly what I was doing when this song came out. So they understand that, they understand symbolism, right? They understand how visually, how people are viewed, right? So if they think, if they create the narrative that we're just, athletes, or we're violent, that's all we bring to the table, right?
Right.
And I think that instead of ESPN and Fox Sports 1 creating a distinction, right, and having more positive influences, they'll give a platform to somebody that says, hey, if I see Skip, in Bel Air, I'm going to slap him, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And I think that they kind of are actually, as much as, they talk against some of it, they use those same people, that are, once again, they are marrying. We know that music is an influencer. We know people are influenced and emotionally drawn to sports. So what better than to marry those together, have, create a bridge between rappers and, athletes. So it muddies the water, and everything is, and to a large degree, it can all be, have a negative output on, how we view each other. What do you say?
Oh, I agree with you totally. I mean, this exploitation has taken place for, centuries, as we know. But right, if you look at just recently, going back to Colin Kaepernick, right, and how at some point the NFL was able to turn that whole thing around and said, you know what, maybe we shouldn't go against the grain on this. We could actually make money off this, right? Let's go ahead and let's support Black Lives Matter. Let's put some things on the helmets and in the end zones and different things like that. And, again, because that's going to, what they were able to do was to say, hey, we're going to convince the structure, if you will, and the systems that are in control of these levels of output to say, listen, this is not a bad thing, okay? We can still be able to exploit this and make money off of it. Again, how do we exploit? All I have to do is make you think you're winning when you're not. Give you something, or give you the illusion that you're benefiting from what we're doing as well, right? So rappers get these enormous contracts, and they get all this money up front that they don't really own, they don't really have. It's just basically a loan. And then at some point in the duration of that contract, they're bankrupt. The album doesn't sell, and now they're in debt to a company. They don't own the material, they don't own masters, they don't own the publishing. So they're left all this creativity, all this stuff that they were able to get and produce out of the inside of who they are, they don't even own, right? Somebody else has made money off that. Same thing we see here in sports. When you look at Fox Sports 1, you look at ESPN, all of these different platforms, and I don't really care what it is. I mean, it could be YouTube, it could be IG, it could be Facebook, it could be all of these different mediums that we use. Again, when the culture, and because Black culture, as we know, which is responsible for trillions of dollars as relates to its contribution to the economy, Black people spend money, and Black people consume a lot of merchandise. And we are people that are so immersed in trying to gain a lot in terms of when it comes to materialism, because for so many years, for centuries, we believe by having something, right, gives us this sense of respect and identity. And so they know that, and the powers that be understand that. So when you look at the Skips, and you're bringing in the Lil Waynes, and you had the Snoop Dogs up there, and you had other rappers and different people, and you know how to blend these things, to your point, Donald, again, what it does is it gives credibility to these things. When you look at Skip Bayless, Skip has no credibility, but yet he's the one making the most money. He's getting the most attention. He's the one that's getting, and you got to understand, Skip is the kind of individual that understands, like, I can take the smoke, because again, and I said this in our last episode, he's not concerned about relationships. He's a nomad. He's an exclusionary guy who doesn't mind being the antagonist. It doesn't bother him, because why? As long as he's on the center of attention. This is why he cut Shannon off when Shannon was trying to explain to America why he wasn't on the show, and his disagreement with the tweet, and believing that the show should not have been about your tweet. It should have been more about Damar Hamlin. Skip wasn't trying to hear that, because you're taking attention away from Skip. So we don't want to hear that. So Skip jumps in, and I think Shannon really should have fought back, in my opinion. I think sometimes Shannon kind of acquiesces a little bit too much to him. I think he feels like there's this indebtedness he has to him for giving him this platform, and he kind of feels like he needs to ingratiate Skip. And that's the only thing I have a problem with Shannon in that sense. I think Shannon needs to push back more, and Shannon does have enough cachet to have his own platform and do the things that he needs to do. And I'll just say this too, and I don't want to kind of get off in a rambling mode, but I like what he did when he diffused this whole thing on Twitter, when people saying, look, we come up there and we're going to raid the parking lot. And you notice what he said. He said, look, we don't need to be insurrectionists. We don't need to go into the Capitol mindset, because really what he was saying, don't do what they did, okay? Just let's be mature. Let's take the high road. I'm good. You understand what I'm saying? But I think what's bothering people is that we see Shannon, I think, he takes this real submissive position. He can get angry, he can be upset with Skip, he can clearly see and know that he's being disrespected, but he still just takes it, even though he kind of jabs back with him or jar with him, but it's still not the same. And I think he needs to be able to do something about that. But I'll end it with this though, D. Black culture is exploited in music, movies. We see how a lot of our family structure has been inverted, and I think there's a major problem with this. And I think as Black people, we have to be able to start understanding where the dangers of this infiltration is coming in and how we are being exploited. And at the end of the day, unless we start to own, unless we start to produce, like you can have a Tyler Perry and he's got the great studio here in Atlanta, but at the end of the day, you still have, a lot of the system that's distributing the movies, right? They're still behind the whole thing. He still needs Hollywood to do what he does. And so he can produce it all, but he still needs to have it distributed. Same thing with music. You can own your own label. These rappers got their labels, but they're still under Universal. They're still under Capitol. They're still under the major labels that do what? The distribution for them. So until we understand how to own trucks and ships and merchandise and warehouses and understand the process of being able to not only manufacture what we do, but to distribute it, to have platforms as such as major, television stations and different things of that nature, we will still never be able to get and control the content that we have. And so it's unfortunate, but yes, sports definitely exploits the Black culture, I think, to a detriment.
And you brought up a good point also. We know sports, we know music, but also movies.
Yeah.
There aren't really movies that come out that really show a positive outlook on Black men, really. And if you want to talk about a whole group that has been typecast, right? So either you are a drug dealer, you are a murderer, you are like or a slave, right?
Right.
Because there's only certain things that you can actually Will Smith, right? He has this new movie that is streaming. I don't know how well it's doing on Apple TV. Emancipation. But how many 12 Years a Slave movies are we going to put out?
Exactly.
Because let's talk about the ones that were not slaves. Let's talk about, anyone that was empowered. Let's talk about anybody who has Hollywood has zero interest in putting out movies to discuss what we have brought to the table, right? They want to focus on us eating crumbs off the table, right? Exactly. That's their main focus, because if you keep a person in a certain mindset, right? And if you think that if a person is made to feel inferior, less than, then, as a man thinketh, so is he, right? Correct. That's what the Bible says, right? That is a tool. That is a tool that is used against us, right? But they'll put out movies where, they'll put out movies where the roles of empowerment are inverted, right? Correct. So they will put out strong roles where women are lead, men are either, as the old term, suck egg dogs, right? Where they got their tail between their legs somewhere, and they're not even in a leadership role. And we know how a successful structure of a family, if we want to get biblical, we talk about how the structure should be, right? How God views it. So to have and put major money behind movies that show the opposite is by design. Exactly. And so it works hand in hand. And what they want to do, what media wants to do, what the people behind the scenes want to do, is they know that what you see is not always what you get. Correct. But what they want to show you is different depictions that are always less than. Yep. They don't want you to feel empowered. They don't want you to highlight the impact of what you bring to the table. They
Correct.
want you to feel like, hey, what is inspiring for actors? Now, there are certain actors that have broken through that glass ceiling that can pick, choose, and refuse roles, right?
Right.
But up and coming actors, unless you're doing indie films and all of that stuff,
right?
And let's not even talk about other agendas that they're pushing. But
Correct.
there are certain agendas that you have to be boxed into, right?
Yes, you do.
And those agendas, they will push that more and more. And if you are not willing to take one of those roles, right? And it's about 3 or 4 roles: a drug dealer,
right.
a slave, you have to be willing to do things that are not. We know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You have
and to see, and here's the point: the fact that we can't even speak about that and say it with the level of explicitity that we would need to say it to just even make our point clear, without coming off, being either extremely biased or derogatory, and it's not about that. It's just that, again, we even have to be careful how things are set, and that's lets you know again the power that these agendas have, and that they silence the things that other people need to say as it relates to their culture being minimized and denigrated. So again, that in itself, the fact that we have to talk in code
and we have to dance around that, right?
Right.
The fact we have to dance around that, and the United States always talks about freedom of speech, right? But that freedom of speech really is that is a farce, right? Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
We really there are certain elements and certain demographics that we have to keep our mouths shut about. Absolutely. Because is it really freedom of speech if I have to kind of tap dance around or tiptoe around certain subject matter? If it is a free society, right, we should be able, and especially if we're not coming from a place of being malicious, a place of being hurtful, but we just want to call it like we see it.
Right.
That shouldn't be a problem. But it is like, hey, you can't talk about just any and everything, because what you say can and will be used against you. It will be taken out of context, but that's just the world we live in. And so we saw all that to say that our culture as a whole is being exploited. And it's time for us to wake up and understand that, hey, are we part of the problem? Are we part of the solution? What are we perpetuating? What are we allowing to be part of just the normalcy of what we accept, right? And I've had discussions with family members about this, where you want to support, Black movies or movies that come out that have a Black storyline. But at what point do we push back and say, okay, we're more than this, right? There's more to us than being a crack kingpin. There's more than us than that, right?
To us than that.
Exactly. There's more than us being the biggest pimp in Detroit. There's more to us than that, right?
Say that.
But why does Hollywood greenlight that, but other movies about us revolting, us for standing up, us pushing to get our fair share? Correct. It has to be pretty much self-financed. Right. You got to ask everybody, you got to have you got to cash in bottles, you got to sell chicken dinners to get the money up to actually get that produced.
That's right.
So that is by design, because these actors that decide to go that route, right, they're great actors and actresses, right? Yeah. So it's not about talent. It's not like it's a movie full of Z-list actors and actresses. Right. But now, I think several actors and actresses have talked about their ability to get roles. And then if we go into, kind of the whole complexion, color construct, that's a whole nother story, right? Because, sometimes roles are limited for certain complexions. It's just a lot of stuff that, from a standpoint of exploitation, you know, we know, both of us being black men, we both know that we come in all shapes, colors,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
education levels,
Very
all of
diverse.
that. So we're super diverse, but yet we fall into certain categories in our movies. It's not as diverse as we are. You get what I'm saying? And that's totally by design.
Good point. Good point. Definitely by design, D. And it's and again, it's all part of the agenda to create that divisiveness, right, within the culture, you know, to where, you know, again, certain sects of, when I say it's not sex but se sections, right, of us are pit against each other. And, you know, whether it be, again, like you talked about, you know, our pigmentation, whether it, you know, relates to economic status, social status, where our backgrounds, our journeys come from, you know, educational, you know, leverages. It all varies within our community. And so they were able to pick apart and parcel what they believe can work, and that's what they will portray. And so no matter what way you look at it, it's going to be exploited in a way that is going to have a negative connotation. So when you look at somebody like a 50 Cent, who has a show for life that really talks about the overcoming, you know, of a black man who was falsely incarcerated and becomes a lawyer while he's incarcerated, defending other inmates, and then ultimately, again, getting discovering enough evidence in his own case to be able to get himself obviously exonerated at some point.
It was a great show. It was a great show.
And it's gone, right? But you know, you got, but yet you got 44 iterations of power, right? Again, that can get the level of success that it has, because again, you know, it's what the consumer, us as a people, we tend to gravitate to. We get to pull to that, but in conjunction with that, the brass that runs and makes the decisions on these shows and media will say, well, you know what, we you know, we'll give it a little something, we'll show some positivity, you know, maybe we'll do a little something, a little documentary here or something there, whatever the case. But we can't run on that forever, all right? Because that's not going to make us money. We got to be able to exploit more and look at how we can expose again the structures of the black community and find ways to make this thing look as pessimistic as possible, because that's what sells. And guess what? You don't see that in other communities. Other communities are not going to do that. You know, you can look at any community, any ethnicity, and they're not leaving their families. They're not denigrating their women. They're not abandoning their children. Again, their family dynamic is very, very strong for them. That's
and certainly we're not suggesting that we're, you know, black communities are the only ones that do these things, but they're the only ones that are highlighted.
Exactly.
Every other community does this, right? So domestic violence and abuse and this,
of course, because those are just human
every
things
community
anyway,
does that. But ours is put on Front Street. And somebody posted something that I thought was very interesting and spot on. You know, everybody talks about Fox, right, being such a, you know, kind of a more conservative, right-wing, racist, if you will, a show or network. But that's that same Fox has Empire on it. So that had Empire. That lets you know that they don't care. They don't care.
Doesn't matter.
They're about the dollar. So they will show what their overall views of society is one thing, but they still want to monetize and still make money off of a negative depiction of a black family structure.
There you go.
So they don't care. At the end of the day, they really don't care. They're in it for the money. At the end of the day, they're in it for the money. So if you think that you're gonna try to back them into in a corner as to, you know, where they stand on one or the other, they know that this type of, you know, Cookie and the rest of them, and, you know, everybody and the music and the drugs and all of that stuff is still going to have a captivated audience. Okay, then we'll put that on, and then we'll still tell you that, you know, and when we go, it's time for the news broadcast. We'll tell you your lowdown, and we'll highlight some of the same depictions of the black community, but in the news, we'll make that our focal point, and we'll say, hey, this is where, what's the phrase, how something imitates life or art imitates life. They will
Yeah.
make the comparison that, hey,
Right.
this is not just a show, but this is actually, so it all works hand in hand. And
Absolutely.
it's to our detriment at the end
It
of the
is.
day. So
It
I
is.
think we just need to, as a community, be more mindful of, how much we are accepting of being exploited. And it should be not at all. We shouldn't be okay with it at all.
No, we should not be. And we do need people, I think, hence what we're talking about, the Shannons, if we will. And I'm not putting all that burden on guys that are in his position, but what I'm saying is that when we do see people take that position, you look at what happened with Kanye, and you talked about the freedom of speech, right? Well, there's no freedom of consequences, right? Any private company can say, okay, fine, you have a right to say that. You're not going to go to jail for what you said, but we are going to pull the riches from you because, again, in our eyes, you're just another black person that we can find another Kanye. We're going to find another Kyrie. Nike's like, hey, what doesn't matter? We'll find another Kyrie because, again, there's so many of us in the pipeline. And so the sad part is that until we look at these things and say, you know what? If these guys are setting an example, whether it be direct or indirect, deliberate or maybe, unintentional, we still should say, hey, you know what? This is sending a message here. Let's try to see if we can continue to take that momentum and push that, right? I would love to see Kanye what level of influence that he has. I know Kanye is a very complicated. I'm talking about let's just say we look at the Kanye that is for black people on Monday, okay? Because we know Tuesday, Wednesday, we don't know what we're going to get out of Kanye, right? But
That
Monday
platform,
Kanye,
that size of a platform,
right? That size of a platform. Thank you, Don. That's a better way to put it. His size of platform where he can be able to go ahead and, again, goes back to his own manufacturing, distribution of his merchandise and sneakers and clothing and all the other things that he has. He has the ability to do that, and I think he would do very well with that. I think because people know that he owns everything from soup to nuts, then yes, that would be very powerful in that sense, and that would be something that would start to propel, I think, this real next level of ownership, right? Like, I think we've made strides as a community to get into different places in which we've gotten into, but we know that the doors are still closed in some other areas that we still can't get through because, again, that exploitation and that particular brass that's running and controlling media, which is a very important component of our society, are just not going to let that go through. So instead of trying to bust down that door, just create another door, create another house, create another
your own,
right? And create your own. And then
that way you control it from top to bottom. Yeah,
imagine we took some trillions of dollars and did that, right? The money we put in supporting other businesses, we did that and put that in our own. Shout out to Killer Mike that has his own bank too, which I think is good. I'm actually going to get ready to open up an account.
There's been studies about how quick or how long our dollars stay in our community. They've
I saw that.
And so our money doesn't. Other communities.
Our show is longer. Our show has been on longer. It's longer than a dollar state.
Exactly. That is it. And one quick thing.
Sure.
Stephen A. Smith, speaking of platforms and using or misusing a platform, correct. Stephen A. Smith has, when different situations come out, he's very, very vocal. And he's unapologetic. That's what he says, right?
Right.
And so a video, TMZ, who finds everything. If you do anything, TMZ is around, right?
They're around, right?
TMZ finds a video of Dana White slapping his wife, right? At a bar. It appeared to be at a bar. She slapped him first. He slapped her. Right. And it was like they threw blows, right?
Right.
So Stephen A is now, Dana White, I think he owns UFC or, so he's a big figure. And
absolutely.
it's time for Stephen A to actually address it, right?
Right.
And the view has always been with Ray Rice and everyone else that, because the Ray Rice situation, the NFL doesn't care. What forced them to care is that there was a video, right?
Exactly.
So I say all that to say there's a video of Dana White slapping and getting into a physical altercation with his wife. My question is, and the handling of how Stephen A addressed it was, it wasn't like he kind of skirted around. Yeah, you don't put your hand on a woman. And I'm just, I'm gonna say that. But I love Dana White, and he's more apologizing. If you're wrong, right?
Right.
And so all we ask is that you be fair.
Yeah, exactly.
When other people have indiscretions or issues or things that they have done wrong, just have that same compassion. Say that because he's saying, oh, I love Dana White. I loved it. Dana White don't care about you. I'm going to be honest.
No, he
does not care about you.
No, he
so
does not.
That whole I love Dana White, listen, save it. But
Save
yet,
it.
with other people, once again, in our community, you are ready to all but castrate them.
Right.
Just look at his handling initially of Kyrie Irving. He was not. Hey, listen,
he went in on him.
We're gonna stand by him. Because I love Kyrie. No, it was none of that. There was no benefit of the doubt. It was no. Hey, listen, maybe he wasn't aware of what he was doing, or we haven't seen. Kyrie is he's quirky, but we haven't seen anything to the level of anything that would seem racist or anti-Semitic from him before. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt until we have more information. Here you have, it was just a link to a movie on Amazon, which he never called out Amazon, but yet you want to give Dana White a pass. And so all we ask is just be fair with these platforms, these huge platforms that people watch. Just be fair and call it like you see it across the board. If there is zero tolerance or there is no place ever for a man to put his hands on a woman, then that has to be across the board. It does not matter about your relationship with the person. Wrong is wrong. But he kind of mumbled the wrong part, but more, I love them. And and then Molly chimes in. Yeah, we seen her slap him too. But what does that have to do with anything?
It doesn't mean anything.
Domestic violence is domestic violence. They're both wrong. They're both wrong.
Yeah,
but certainly, Dana White putting his hands on his wife, that should have, but once again, that will get very little. And people still aren't talking about Brett Favre. There are certain things that will never, that nobody, Brett Favre is going on about his life. Probably trying to figure out how to steal some more money from another state, and nobody is talking about that. And I will say one more thing.
Yeah. People
do say, while the country can focus on such, minute things such as, Skip and Shannon, their spat and other stuff, Dana White and all that stuff. The government is doing stuff right under our nose, and that's how they keep us distracted. They keep us distracted with stuff like this for us to discuss. And yeah, we have a sports show, so yeah, we are discussing it. Right. But just be mindful and be aware of your surroundings and what's going on, in our government, what's going on in the world. Have a world view. Don't let ESPN, Fox Sports 1, Brooklyn Beards and Ball. Don't let this be your sole, a source of information and news. Right. You should know what's going on. You should know what Congress is doing. You should know who the Speaker of the House is going to be. You should know all of that. And if you don't, shame on you. That's what you should. You should be aware of your surroundings.
I totally agree. I say, D, I think you surmised it very, very well, and I totally agree with you there. This a lot of it is designed to be a distraction, and because again, we get so consumed with entertainment, and this is part of entertainment, right? Even our sports show, that's what it's designed to do, to entertain, to put our mental state in another compartment for a moment or two, whatever it is, an hour or two, whatever it is, where you pull your entertainment source from, to kind of be that escapism to what the real world is doing. And we have to be careful with that. We can't be so aloof in what we're consuming that we completely are out of touch with what the real issues are and what's taking place. And I'll just say this real quick about Stephen A. Stephen A. is compromised. There's no question about it. He's
Right.
you know, it's no matter no matter which way you look at that, no matter what vantage point you try to see, you know, his position and his platform from, he's severely compromised. It just doesn't matter with him because he's another one like Kanye to that degree where he's trying to find that soft spot to land, and there is no soft spot. There is no medium. You can't. When it comes to injustices, when it comes to things that are where there's inequality, there is no middle. It's either right or wrong.
I'd rather you be hot or cold, right?
Hot or cold, right? That's what the Bible tells us too, because you will be spewed out. Because
right.
You cannot sit in the middle of when it comes to what is righteous and unrighteous. It doesn't matter. You have to take a stand. You have to be decided in where you sit. And when you look at him, even with Jerry Jones, there's a point in time where he called out Jerry Jones very vehemently during the Colin Kaepernick thing, right? Because Jerry was very silent for a long time when that was going on. I remember him coming out, Jerry Jones, you need to say something, right? Now, that was before his relationship started to evolve, though, with Jerry. Now you go on the Cowboys website, who do you see on there? Stephen A. Smith. They did a whole video together, right? And the whole thing, and he's flying
cowboy hat on, and
hat, the whole nine. So
he's on the tape.
Compromised.
Yep.
He's compromised. So then all of a sudden, we saw the video as a young Jerry Jones, okay, clearly, all right, antithetical and in full opposition of an integrated school, okay. You know, well, that was 400 years ago. It doesn't matter, right? You see, so he's compromised to the big degree. In America, we gotta. That's why we gotta make sure our eyes are open, man, and we are listening intently and not just going with what we see. Because again, they work for the brass. Okay, Disney's got Stephen A. Fox got Skip and Shannon. They got all these people. So this is what I'm trying to say. No matter what platform you go on, you're going to still be subject to the rules, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, IG, TikTok. At the end of the day, they control your content. You still can't be free in what it is that you say unless you own it yourself, okay? Owning a page or owning a TV show, it doesn't mean nothing, okay? That's why 50 Cent and all these other black producers, Ava DuVernay, I'm sorry if I enunciated her name incorrectly, or DuVernay rather, excuse me, and all the other people that we see that are great, prolific, talented writers and movie creators and so forth, it's great, but at the end of the day, they still need a white studio to approve and to be determined to determine what that content is going to look like on the other end when it comes to that output. And that's the part that we just don't have control over. So it's just what it is. So yeah, black culture exploited in every major facet of entertainment. Why? Because it's entertainment that shapes and cultivates the mindset of a people within America. So if you want to be able to get control of people, you got to show them content, and you got to do it through the media. And that is the only way you'll be able to get people to conform to an agenda, whether it be right or wrong. So
that is well said. Well said. Well, listen, I think we are at a good place to conclude our show. I think
this was a good one. Yeah,
I thought it was really good. Once again, we want to give a shout out to Infinite Audio for the music, right? And we also want to give a shout out to Kingdom Creative for the production.
Boy, they got a lot of listen. They're gonna have a lot of editing to do.
Yeah, a lot of editing, right?
A lot of editing, right?
But once again, we ask everyone, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook page. YouTube first, then Facebook. YouTube first, then Facebook. That's where all of the content. Also hit the subscribe button, also the notification. So every time we put up content, you get it first. You'll be notified. We appreciate you guys for joining us once again. Until next time, Rod, it was a pleasure.
Always, Big D.
Hopefully next time we speak, will be the Niners will be the number 1 seed. That would be number 1 seed. I must plant my seed in fertile soil. It is the fulfillment of prophecy. That will be edited out.
That's gonna be edited, right? That's
Oh man.
Oh, God. Yeah.
My number one seed in fertile
fertile
soil.
Right.
But until next time, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. We love you guys.
We love y'all.
Peace.